Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Fire Emblem 9 tier list review. I am Mekkah and I'm joined once again by Typhoon Carter. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just woke up, but I'm still feeling great regardless.
Nice. So we are going to pick up where we left off in a minute with Mia, the last of the OG GMs, as I would call them. Just a quick note before we start, I haven't uploaded the first part yet. Typhoon, I didn't tell you, but the first part is going live tonight after we record this.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
haven't gotten any feedback yet. So if you had any feedback, I'm sorry I haven't been able to process it yet. But I liked the video, so I hope you'd like to.
All right.
Yeah, let's just get going with Mia, I suppose. I guess
Yeah.
we just go with the usual routine. Like I'll rant a little bit
Mhm.
first, and you add on anything that I missed or that you
Yeah.
have for your own personal experiences, and we'll be a happy tier list like makers at the end of it.
Yeah.
So Mia, I don't think anyone will be surprised when I find Mia FE9 really disappointing. She joins so early that you'd think she have a lot of utility, but I found it hard to even justify using Mia in the run I did, because there's just no niche for her really. Like, I hate to use the same example over and over, but if she was in a context like FE6, you know, a fast sword using character would be a lot better, but because it's FE9, it's pretty much the opposite. Especially with all these paladins being so fast down to the night ward and the flyers being able to double everything, there's no real purpose for a super fast unit like Mia to do anything special like boss killing or doubling tough swordmasters or anything. And then her shortcomings, like the lack of one-to range and the lack of high might, just work double because the requirement to like one round KO in this game is so high when it comes to attack power, and she misses that by like miles and miles. So it's really hard to justify using her. I think she's also like very light on her feet, or like just not very heavy, so she can't shove a whole lot of people. I don't remember her being able to shove Ike, for instance, like maybe mages, and that's about it. So even that is like kind of iffy. The one thing I found that she was pretty good at was helping out on the beach to get some houses in chapter, I think it's a chapter where the Laguz are like allies and you're getting Marcia
Chapter
back.
9.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the one where I had some purpose for her. But even in the joining chapter, I found her utility fairly limited. So I think Mia's fine where she is. I think she's still better than Rolf. And maybe she can move a little bit depending on the other people, but I don't see her changing a whole lot personally. What do you think?
Thing with Mia, for starters, she doesn't really have sea sword, so like she can't really even use something like the Laguz Slayer or like a killing edge at base. So like that's already like pretty disappointing. Her most useful trait, unironically, is like taking damage as just for like fucking mist or like risk to like spam heal saves on her, which is super depressing. But the other massive shortcoming is that like if you like really want to try and use her, like let's say you like forge, like if, because like steel swords aren't, as a forge, aren't really available early on, which kind of sucks because like that could in theory augment like her might a little bit. But even with an iron sword forge, it's like kind of depressing because like you don't really get that much mileage out of Mia at the point she joins. And like unironically, I find that myself that like I always like undeploy her in like the chapter 8 defend map so I can get like more bonus XP because it literally, yeah, because the game literally like encourages you to like low man like with the
That's
Vex.
true.
Yeah, it's like kind of dumb. But and then you did mention like the beaches, although I find that like getting the houses like in like even in like casual context is like not exactly the easiest thing
No,
to
I had to use
do.
like 6 characters to do it, and it was still like barely. So I think they still burnt down one house. It's insanely difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So like I usually like don't even bother
No, that's
with the
fair.
houses. Yeah, yeah. But like I said before, like I think I literally had her use an iron blade in my like LTC run just to get her, just to like have her get hurt on purpose because my other characters were either like too dodgy or they were too beefy
That's
for
the,
like the enemies to actually damage at that point in the game for some reason,
that's the other thing that
which is
hurts her.
like
Like,
hilarious.
that's the other thing that really hurts
Yeah.
her, right? Is that she gets weighed down so much by all these weapons, because the like anything that's not like iron or steel is super heavy, and then Mia has like very poor strength to augment it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like so bad that like I would actually move her like into like E or even F tier.
Damn. I know you wanted an F tier at one point, but we don't have one yet. We can make one when it's available, I guess. I don't know, we'll
Yeah,
see.
but I would. I don't think she. I think she's like about as bad as Rolf. Like maybe not quite as bad, but she's getting close. She's cutting it
I
close.
don't know. I feel like Rolf is like a lot of other problems. Like Rolf gets like doubled in his joining chapter, I think. Where
Oh, I
Mia,
don't.
like she's not dying in one hit.
And that's true. I don't even remember Mia actually doing that much in chapter 7.
No,
7, it's
definitely
like
not.
so, but yeah, and then Rolf. The funny thing about Rolf is that like you like if you're trying to get him to recruit like Shannon and stuff, you can like give him a pure water, like a rescue drop him, and then use him as bait for like the Blizzard Tome in chapter 18. It's like hilarious.
Wait, does he survive with base?
Yeah, with a pure water he does.
Okay, so you're saying that makes that's like something that's maybe slightly puts him on par with Mia in that way?
Yeah, and something that like you could realistically like probably end up doing, although I had to like use the rescue drop trick to like delay the pure water like boost from like dropping down each passing turn. So like that is something. Yeah. So like yeah.
Here's the thing though, like you're deploying Rolf in a chapter where if it wasn't for Shinon, you would never deploy Rolf in that chapter, right? And I'm not really.
That is true.
I think I did say complete
true.
recruitment at some point though, so maybe
Yeah,
that would be
that
fair.
is fair. But like that is something like if you are going for that, that is something you could realistically go for.
Okay, I do think. I mean, I didn't really do complete recruitment for my run, but I think complete recruitment is a valid perspective at the very least. Okay, I'll just give them both an E tier. Maybe something will change along the way to make my change mind again.
I just think that E tier could be a lot bigger.
Oh yeah, no, the D tier is totally getting broken up either way.
Yeah,
that's totally fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Should we just keep on talking about Rolf then? I guess while we're doing it.
Yeah.
He's next anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I mean, I had him in E tier that like below everyone else, which I think it was valid, but I can see the argument for Mia being there with him as well. I think on top of all the other problems that he obviously has, like no enemy phase, bad base stats, underleveled.
×2.
Yeah, ×2 weakness. I mean, if you're training Rolf, you'll probably be able to two-shot flyers if you do like fully get him there. So I don't even think that's the biggest problem. The bigger problem for that, I guess, is when he's still underleveled, you can't kill flyers, but how many flyers do you really face? I guess the Wyverns in chapter whatever Jill is like first like on the field of Black chapter Zihark, whatever that chapter.
Oh, that's like chapter 11.
Yeah, so maybe at that point it could hurt him. I guess the Ravens it's like a little tough to kill.
I remember Rolf only doing like fucking 1 or even 2 damage to Ravens.
Yeah, to Ravens really? Damn, that's insane.
Yeah, like even Sorn didn't do that much damage with like Wind. It was like you were just better off using a Thunder Tone straight up. That's like how depressing ×2 effectiveness is. Although there are instances where it can still be okay, like with the magic weapons. Only because like the base might of those weapons are like pretty solid.
Yeah, but I imagine if there were ×3, that'd be even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just no real redeeming factor to Rolf other than novelty points like triangle attack and all this stuff. But that's obviously not very viable. I don't think we need to rag on Rolf too much. I do like what you just brought up though, that you can like, if you're gonna get Shinon anyway, you can use him to bait blizzards in his joining chapter. That's funny.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anything else to say about Rolf really. I think I've said it all.
Yeah, Rolf is kind of depressing. It's depressingly bad. Like in all seriousness. Like sure you get backs him up, but it's like, dude, it's like you're not really getting much mileage for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's really just if you're doing it to use Rolf. You're doing it as a novelty, which I get. It's funny. I think I actually did it on my last RMN run too. It was actually really fun. Like he has some. It's funny to use unit like Rolf. Like right now, I'm doing the Last Promise Iron Man, and I'm using like the Archer in that game, who is, I mean, slightly better than Rolf, but not by that much. And it's just funny to use bad characters. It's really enjoyable. But for this kind of tier list, it's not gonna be helping him gain any spots over anyone else. It's just a fun factor. That's about it. Is that it? Marcia is next, right?
Oh wait, Marcia's next. There's plenty to talk about for Marcia.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I used Marcia as my like quote unquote carry in my playthrough in FE9. I just saved a bunch of backspin stat boosters for her because I knew she would be instrumental. And I'm honestly liking her more than I remember her because I expected her to be a bit worse than expected, which sounds stupid, but because I was playing normal mode draft races for a while, and in those Marcia's absolutely godly, so I expected to be like disappointed about how she performed on hard mode. But it turns out, you know, if you just have the resources to make her really good, she turns out really good. I made like a little you know, the handshake meme where you have like two people that agree on something even unexpectedly. I made one for like elitists, LTC players, speedrunners, whatever, and like casual players who go like, I used all my resources on this one unit and they're really amazing, and they're just shaking hands over that. Because that's really what happens with units like Marcia. I do think like when it comes to Marcia, I don't credit them for taking all the resources and becoming really good. I'm trying to credit them for being able to convert those resources into really useful utility. And besides like maybe Jill, no one can really replicate that in this game, and so she's the best user of that resources. That still means there's an opportunity cost for using them, but the benefits far outweigh the costs. Like if you put all those resources in Oscar instead, you're getting much less out of it. And if you don't give those resources, I think she's still like pretty much on there. I think the gap becomes a little bit smaller between these units, but it still doesn't make a big difference. And then when you do have those resources, she flies over everything and she kills just about everything. And then Marcia's weakest important stat is probably her strength, but fortunately this game is forging, and it has the forges like just at the right time to where she can still twit kill stuff with the forged iron or forged steel, later on even forged silver. And I haven't played beyond the desert chapter yet, which is I think 14 or 15. And at that
15.
Yeah, thank you. And at that point, I expect her like attack shortcomings to be apparent at some points, but not to the point where she won't be the best unit still. Like we talked about last episode about how Marcia becomes better than the paladins over the course of like the mid game ish, and I think the amount of time that she's the best unit makes her perfectly deserve like the S tier spot, and even being like the first unit or the best unit in the game in some contexts. But I'm happy with Titania too. What do you think?
Right. So thing with Marcia is that, as you stated before, her strength is probably like her biggest shortcoming normally, like even with like bonus XP. But normally her strength will at least get her by like to like killing the relevant stuff you want for a lot of the mid game. It's usually the late game where you kind of start to, I'd say around chapter 17 in some instances, or even like chapter 18, but is where you would probably start to experience some of her like shortcomings of like her strength cap being rather kind of low, although it is worth mentioning that she actually normally doesn't cap out her strength on average, but she's like pretty close. So like she's a very strong candidate for the energy boost or energy drop stat booster. And the big thing with Marcia is that you pretty much want to dump a lot of bonus XP onto her, and she's kind of like your carry for around like a lot of the mid game, as you stated before. And I think like by binomials it's like 80. It's like if you're backspinning her up to like level 20/5 or something, it's like she'd be able with like an energy drop around like 86% of the time, she'd be able to meet like those benchmarks to like get the relevant kills that you want out of her. And the other thing is like she's like far and away the best boots candidate in the game, mostly because like a lot of the Laguz that can actually like shove her, which is like something that Jill doesn't necessarily have going for her, but I'll elaborate more on Jill later.
Yeah.
It also helps for the most part like around the mid to late game where you have like so many maps where like you have the objective being arrive where like Marcia is just like straight up, it's just straight up C's, but you can have any unit reach that C's point, and like Marcia is like pretty much the best unit for stuff like that in particular. It also just helps that there's like so much like terrain that Marcia can kind of just fly skip over. But with that being said though, it's like even though like in the late game, while she may not necessarily be able to kill stuff, she's still at worst your second or third best unit, and in some cases even your best unit still, because it's a problem that's not really mutually exclusive to her per se, but like she does like have to face lots of combat. That like throwing like shade on her is like a legitimate option.
Oh yeah, I remember Pitfall's map.
Although that had more to do with the fact that I didn't have the full guard on her, or like I couldn't get the full guard, mostly because like the routing to like get dev done kind of like constrained me, but like that's besides the point. But even then, I think like Marcia's like magic is like okay enough where you could actually get her to kill some Laguz units. Like I think on average, like in the late game with like a flame lance,
Mhm.
it's like you only need like 9 or 10 magic. Like so, like a spirit dust Marcia is an option because like around
Wow.
that point in the game, you're probably close to capping out like your like Marcia in terms of levels and stuff. So like I remember on average she's like around 7 to 8 magic. So like she only really needs like 9 or 10 magic to like one round KO because like the Flame Lance has like a high base might, like a pretty good base might of 10. So like against like Beast Laguz, it's like really a 20 might weapon.
So for
Pretty
my
much.
reference, does it does the same close range as a far range, right? The flame lance.
Yeah, correct. They do the exact same. They both hit on res, so like it is a niche option, but it is something worth considering.
Yeah, I mean it's just an alternative to reach the threshold to one round something, just like a Silver Forge would be. I have another
Yeah.
question, if you don't mind. What do you think of Marcia's like durability? Because I think I gave her a robe and a Draco shield, and I was pretty satisfied with it. I think it's satisfactory for a unit this high.
I think she doesn't necessarily need a robe or Draco shield, but while it can help, but for the most part it's usually good enough because like Path of Radiance enemies aren't exactly the most threatening as far as killing goes. On top, like combine that with the fact that their accuracy isn't the greatest. I think she also has like fire affinity, so like she could like in theory have some support with like Kieran or something, although the problem is that Marcia usually has to be kind of like off on her own.
Yeah.
But Tanith is probably like her next best option, which can help in a map like chapter 20 where you have to kill Shiharam and you have to face like a bunch of Wyvern Riders too. Oh, I will mention that like her strength cap, like it prevents her from doing some things like the aforementioned Shiharam kill. I think even at cap Marcia still wouldn't be able to like one round KO Shiharam with just one crit. So you need like 2, which is like really annoying. But yeah, her boss killing like kind of sucks, especially that like you could consider giving her adept to try and like make up for it. But like I find that like getting adept isn't, if you're taking the extra turn in like 17-4, like if you're 2-turning it, because like on Maniac you can get the adept on the same enemy phase as killing Oliver, but like on hard you can't quite do it because it's on a different enemy.
That is kind of weird. I don't really mind turn costs like that, because I think for most people it's fair to take like 1 or 2 extra turns to get like some important treasure, and the only reason you're able to beat the chapter that quickly to begin with is Marcia anyway, so you're dropping a turn there to get it, like whatever. But it is interesting that, because I expect that will be like the biggest difference between her and Jill, or one of the bigger differences is like those kind of benchmarks.
And also the fact that she's just like much lighter to like shovel around. Which is
which might be what we get into next, right, with Laguz? Unless there's anything left about Marcia, of course, she is important.
But basically she flies, is able to skip over a lot of terrain. Oh, I guess I can also mention that like if you decide to give her Joffrey's Brave Lance, like she will be able to free hit KO stuff in like certain chapters, which will be super nice because like at that point you're just hoping she can actually kill stuff. So that is something worth noting.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't break, that seems fine to me.
Although I think I had to conserve the Brave Lance in chapter 28, because like I think that one enemy phase alone like basically broke the Brave Lance.
Probably.
Yeah. Probably. If it weren't for crits, I probably would have definitely broken that Brave Lance.
Yeah, but if the enemy phase is so long that you're like threatening to break the Brave Lance, chances are you'll probably crit somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
so that
probably.
seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. Oh, I will mention that she's basically better than Titania, just like for like how much the game centers around her, for the most part, like as far as completing objectives and stuff goes.
Yeah, I can see that. We discussed it last time. I don't remember exactly why we landed at this conclusion. I think we kind of had the discussion. I don't know. I feel like I need to beat the rest of the game to make like my mind up completely, because right now I only played the part where Titania is the best unit.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Marcia, I guess. I can see where you're coming from. I just think Titania stands out more in her portion where she's dominant, but it's also a shorter portion. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I think that's also never bad. Well,
that's fair.
Besides a couple chapters, we'll see. Anyway, shall we Laguz then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we got Lethe and Mordecai joined basically around at the same time. I think they're pretty different as units, though. I feel like Lethe is more of a burst combat unit, whereas Mordecai is more of a utility kind of person, especially
Yeah.
if you're talking efficient context. So I guess we could just talk about Lethe first in isolation.
Yeah.
So Lethe is, like I said, she has like instant transformation, and her stats, I don't want to say they're like as good as Titania's, especially considering all the other things Titania can do, like 1-2 range. But she's like really, really good at combat for the time that you have her, and pretty useful to have, even when she's just an ally. But I'm just counting her from the moment she turns blue. But she's like, I just find it really nice that you can just have a unit like this without any investment whatsoever for a while. And at the moment they stop being useful, the moment she untransforms, you're probably either done with the chapter or she's done enough to where she's been useful for the entire chapter. Like, what other units are really contributing anything off of note beyond like the turns that Lethe is untransformed? Not a whole lot, I think. That said, I do think in the later portion of the game, not even that far in, but like maybe like around chapter, I want to say like 16, 17, 18, Lethe's combat is not nearly as good as it used to be, and she starts falling short of 2 KOs all over the place, if not already. And just not, you could probably still deploy her, do like a couple things, but she's more of a utility kind of extra flunky combat unit than a real carry. But there's a portion of the game where I think she's one of the best combat units, and I think that's fair enough for B. Maybe move her down a little bit, but not a whole lot. I think she's, I just like utility for free, basically, and that's what I think she is. What do you think?
So for Lethe, that's how I like it. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not sure.
Whatever you like.
I'm not. Yeah, but with that being said, the big thing with like Laguz viability in this game is it comes down to one of two things. It's either A, you can shove your mounted units, or B, you have like instant transformation gauge, which means you don't have to like use the demi ban. So for Lethe, like not needing to have the demi ban to like transform is like very huge, especially at the start of like any given map. So like that's like the first thing she has going for her. And 3 or 2, she can be a decent statue frag candidate. Like if you're double fragging her to like just shove Joe, like that is an option worth considering, because like Joe's like, because like Lethe is like just like 2 weight points like short of actually being able to shove Joe transform, so that is something worth noting. At least like base Joe. The second statue frag would be when Joe inevitably promotes and gets even heavier. But with that being said though, like her combat in a pinch is like perfectly fine for most of the mid game. Like it was holding up, because I remember, although most of the time when I used her, it was mostly for shoving duties, and like the fact that she can transform right away definitely helped a lot, because like when Laguz transformed, her weight also goes up too, so like that's like super nice, especially for Marcia, or even like units like Titania, for example. So like that is something worth noting for Lethe.
You could show off both of those at base then, without any statue frags.
Yeah, she can shove. I think she can definitely. Yeah, she can definitely shove Marcia comfortably, and Joe weight free, and you had to be like 31 weight to show. Yeah, Lethe's like 29 weight when she's transformed.
Okay.
And female paladins are like pretty light, like they're like 29 or something. So like Lethe can shove them pretty comfortably.
Nice.
So yeah, that is something worth noting. But like the combat side of things, it's like you covered it pretty nicely for most part, where like it'll like pretty much get the job done for the most part. Although like the time when like her transformation combat doesn't really cut it per se is like around the point you mentioned, but by that point you're pretty much just using her for like shoving purposes.
Yeah, it transitions nicely, I guess.
Yeah.
So do you think she should move anywhere?
I think she's fine around where she is, although you could argue she's like worse than the sages. You could argue that. Yeah. Because I do think Mordecai's like smite is like pretty important on its own.
Yeah, I can see it both ways. The thing with the mages is it's pretty much down to their opportunity cost versus the benefits. Whereas Lethe, it's like the opposite. It's like there's almost no cost. It's just benefits, but minor. So
but it's like a lot of her duties she does is like mostly in conjunction with Mordecai and like Muarim per se. So like that's like the other thing. Like a lot of like what she contributes when she's not fighting, that is like something worth considering too.
So you're saying what she does only helps you if you also use these other units, these other Laguz.
Yeah, because usually if you're like shoving, you're usually getting like shove chains going. That's usually how I like to look at it.
And you're saying Lethe is like the least important one of the shove chain, or rather. Like,
yeah, because like Muarim's like your best smite candidate. Mordecai already has smite, so like they're kind of like your main guys that you're primarily using for like those purposes. But Lethe is basically like a supplement to them, especially like around the mid game on like past the mid game where like you're not really using her for combat at that point, to be honest. Like that's just how I see it personally.
So like something between like Ileana and Ike then maybe.
Yeah, I think that's like pretty fair. Okay. Because I do think like the cost that the sages offer is like pretty much worth. I think it's worth the trouble for like what they do bring for what it's worth. Yeah, I think it sounds like you can go either way on these things. So I don't have a big preference on like exactly how these go, as long as they're in the right rough area. So yeah, I guess Mordecai, right? Because like we're kind of done with Lethe, I think. Donan told me it's Lethe, but I really don't care about pronouncing it, by the way, so don't worry about it. Okay. So Mordecai, I love smite a lot because it's like all Mordecai does in the early turns until he transforms, which I think is fine if you have anything in mind for him. I think that's a big knowledge gap there between us, because I know how good smite is if you know where you're going with it, but if you don't have a plan for it, I don't think it ends up doing a whole lot. I think I could find myself using Mordecai, but like, oh, I could smite racing 2 tiles forward, and then I find that next turn it actually didn't matter at all. I could just done it without smiting at all. So if you have a plan though, that's like a whole different thing. You can save entire turns or get in range of a bunch of extra enemies with 2 extra tiles, but you need to plan for it a little bit, which I haven't done. So I know there's utility for it. I'm very curious what it is. I already know Mordecai is probably roughly going to stay where he is based on what we've discussed so far. But I don't have a whole lot to add on top of like, if he transforms, he's pretty strong, but it probably isn't happening in the efficient context. So smite, let's hear it. Okay, so thing with Mordecai is besides smite, his natural bulk is like actually surprisingly good. This is pretty relevant for chapters like chapter 10 in like the prison break. Like if you're going the loud and proud route per se, because like the enemies that show up like around where your party starts, they're like actually same turn reinforcements, like, which is something worth noting. It's like one of rare times in the game where like the reinforcements like move on the same turn they show up, but that's besides the point. One thing I will say is like his bulk's like so impressive that I think base Mordecai can actually survive a chapter 21 enemy at base, which is like hilarious. But the thing with smite is smite, like like if you're playing casually, like it's still, you can still make decent use out of it, like because it's almost like a one turn like boots. That's like how I like to think of smite.
It's like burst movement, right? Basically. Like...
Yeah, pretty much. Although the thing with Mordecai is that nice thing is that he can actually shove Jill around. He's like pretty much the only unit who can do it without demi ban. So that is something worth noting. But the other thing is that, like, for example, in chapter 17-2, you might need Mordecai to shove twice. So like, but because he's heavy, it's like you do need like a promote paladin plus Jill, or like 2 paladins, or like say like 2 calves with like both statue fragged to like, it's like, it's kind because like you also need him to move through like the marsh terrains. Oh yeah, that is something the Laguz do have going for them, is that they aren't nearly as held down by terrain penalties, so like that is super nice.
Yeah, that was really nice for Lethe. I forgot to mention that. I saw him move as well.
And then like with Mordecai, you can consider using a statue frag on him like down the line when like Jill promotes to like shove her, because like Mordecai untransform can't really do that. Although that's like more of a Jill problem than like it is a Mordecai problem. But with that being said though, like smite, it is definitely something that like becomes even better like the more you plan out like what you're trying to do with it, or rather the more you plan out your run, the more useful it becomes, because like smite often can make the difference, especially in arrive maps where like you may be a tile or 2 short, short of like reaching a particular point, but like that smite kind of makes up that difference. And usually, but the thing with Mordecai is like that's all he's really doing though, like most of the time. And by the time he usually transforms, like the map's pretty much done. Like I don't think I think when I was doing my run, I don't think I had him really transform at any given point without a demi ban by the time I finished the map, except for like 17-3.
Yeah, because you would give the demi ban to someone else then, I guess.
I usually keep it on Muarim.
Yeah.
I usually keep it on Muarim because like a Mordecai on his own can like pretty much do his job just fine, which is mostly shoving. But like I said, that's just all he's really doing most of the time. He's just like smiting.
An assumption I have is like because smite is so important to do on like turn 1, like Mordecai's not gonna reach most characters turn 2 if he's untransformed, right? So you're probably not. Well, but you probably wouldn't use a Laguz stone on him, is what I'm saying. Most of the time.
Yeah. Although like he can be used to like say shove racing on turn 2 or something if like you used him to refresh because you sometimes do want racing to like catch up.
Yeah.
So that is something worth noting. Yeah.
So do we keep him where he is then?
Yeah, I'm honestly fine with where he is, but I can also see him being below the sages, mostly for the same reasons I mentioned left, because it's like, but it's like even more exaggerated, where like you're just smiting with him most of the time, but he's not really offering you anything else throughout the duration of a map, because like either A gets left behind, or B you're like somehow rescuing is like him and getting him to like do this right, like to get our smite off. That's like the thing I find. It's like that's all you're doing with him. Pretty much.
Still free contribution though, so
it is very good, no denying that, but that's all you're doing with him. It's like a once per map kind of thing, and it doesn't have like the nearly the same value as say like refreshing with Raisin.
No, but Raisin is already 2 tiers above him, so I don't think that helps a lot in weighing this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna keep it how it is, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's totally smart fair. By having the right order. Do you think it makes sense to do Muarim as a package deal, or should we move on to the next character? Because it sounds like he's very similar, but I know Muarim can do some things that they can't, and vice versa.
I guess I get Muarim's like short and like pretty straightforward enough for me to go over, so sure.
Okay, so I guess I can outline my brief experiences with Muarim. So in a lot of ways, I feel like Muarim is almost like Mordecai, but with some key differences, and less availability, of course, because he joins like, what is it, like 5 maps later. And
he joins in chapter 16.
Yeah, in the Devdon chapter, basically. Or whatever you want to call that chapter, the Tormod chapter. And I have noticed that like he has a lot of the same weight benchmarks as Mordecai. I think he's a little bit lighter, right? But not quite as heavy.
He is, but he has the demi band on by default.
Yeah, which I don't really want to count it in favor of Muarim, but he's like one of the better candidates for it. So in a way, I still count it in favor of him, but I could trade it to anyone else, of course. Like Lethe doesn't need it, but Muarim and Mordecai could both use it, right? And then I think his combat compared to Mordecai, so I usually find that Muarim is quite a bit faster and able to double a couple things, so that helps a little bit. But at that point in the game, we have Muarim. You also have probably like at least 3 combat units with 1-2 range that are on par with or better than he is. So I don't find it super useful, other than as like flunky combat. But it's there. It's kind of nice. But I don't know if I rate him. Well, from what it sounds like, especially because you can use smite, you could have like the same utility as Mordecai, but you can smite a lot later. Like you have to get the smite scroll, whereas Mordecai has it by default. So that cuts into it a little bit. So I don't know. I think if I were to move him, it'd probably be like above Ike by like 1 spot. That's like all I can see personally, but maybe there's some things he can do that are so important that he deserves more of a raise. I'm wondering what you think.
Okay, so the thing with Muarim is he's pretty much the best like demi-ban candidate, like straight up, because of the fact that like he already has like Mordecai doesn't really need it because like the weight benchmarks that he needs to perform, like that Mordecai needs to perform, he can already do it without needing the demi-ban. Muarim pretty much needs it, like if he's gonna try and shove Joe in particular, and like maybe some of the paladins too. And as far as smite goes, like he's far and away your best candidate, like by a long shot, because like Janaf and Oki, they don't really have to wait to like necessarily pull off like smite stuff that you want them to pull off.
I mean, Janaf definitely doesn't want to demo band anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like Janaf already transformed. Ranulf doesn't really do much with the demi band either, because like he doesn't exactly have those relevant shelf benchmarks. But for Muarim, it's mostly important for Jill, but also because like his combat's generally like good enough with the demi band that he'll be able to get by. That there's just no reason to take it off him, I find.
Yeah.
Fine. So like that's like the main thing for most part. So like
the game might made the right choice there.
Yeah, like the game pretty much already had. It's like, hey, he's already got the demi band up. You might as well keep it on him.
The game made the optimal choice. The game knows.
Yeah. Like the only reason you take it off is like if you're trying to like do some trading. Like, if you're just trying to trade the demi band around to like say temporarily increase the movement of like another Laguz unit. That's like the only reason you take it off him. So like that's pretty much my thoughts on Muarim. You could argue he's above like he's around that realm, like where he is. I'm perfectly fine with. Like,
I feel like I want to leave him here. I've never really had the opportunity to use him in a more efficient context, but it just seems like he doesn't even have smite for all games, so it's just like a kind of heavy shovel for a portion of it as well.
Yeah, but like he's pretty much like far and away your best smiter anyways, because like you get smite in chapter 20, I believe.
Yeah, but that feels pretty late to me, smite, like 20.
Yeah, but that is like when like a lot of your important maps kind of start coming up where you kind of really want it anyway, so it's like really good timing. I find.
I suppose. I don't know. Again, I'm gonna make myself feel smart by leaving him where he is, but I will acknowledge that. Like, I could see him. Like, I could see Lethe, Ike, and Mordecai, or Lethe, Ike, and Muarim in almost any order. Honestly, I'd be fine with any of them.
Yeah, that's kind of where things get a little murky.
What it sounds like. I said it before, but I think the middle section of the tiers, the B, C, D tiers, are the hardest ones to do because it's often weighing things like no opportunity cost, but decent utility versus really good, but with a bigger cost. Stuff like that. Who is even next after this? Who joins next?
I think we have Zihark. Oh, Brom, Nephenee, Zihark.
Yeah, prison time. Yeah, so Volke, actually.
Oh yeah, Volke too.
Technically joins a little bit earlier. Where is he anyway? Where did I put him?
Oh yeah, Volke's right next to Boyd.
Yeah, okay. Thief utility. That's another super difficult thing to weigh. I know you like doing the prison chapter with no stealth. I did it with stealth in my run, but I'm sure that there's good reasons to do it with no stealth for LTC. I don't remember offhand exactly what treasures you would get with Volke, because it's not just that he can get treasure, but it's also that you have to weigh what treasure he gets on top of the chest keys you already have. I know you have limited chest key uses in this game. You get like a couple droppables over the course of the game. And so you have like, let's say you have like 5 really good treasures, but you have 6 chest key uses. Then a thief is basically worthless almost, because you can just get all the chest keys to get the treasure you need, and then you're kind of done. But at the same time, if there's more treasure than that helps something, like let's say there's a 6th or 7th best treasure that's worth getting, then Volke becomes an interesting unit to get this treasure with, and then you have to weigh like the value of those treasures. FE9, it generally feels like gold is so plentiful you don't need a whole lot of it unless you're forging like crit, in which case it can add something. But
if you're on Maniac, it's a problem.
Oh yeah, do you get less than Maniac?
No, it's because the forge costs are also higher.
Oh okay, all right, good to know. Yeah, I'm assuming hard for this context, so I don't find gold itself super valuable, and a lot of the other treasures is kind of whatever. I know the statue frag in chapter 10 is something that's kind of hard to get without Volke, so I guess that's something to consider. And there's probably more treasures like that.
It's out of the way. It is out of the way. That is worth considering.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to like. I could argue. I don't think I could argue Volke higher than he is currently. But the way I'm looking at it is like it's just Thief utility. I don't think his combat is really worth talking about a whole lot. I think you always have better ones. So it's really just like how much do you care about the treasures that you can't get with chest keys, which I can't think of a whole lot. I can think of a couple good treasures like the Full Guard, but I can't think of a whole lot of treasures that are requiring Volke, if that makes any sense. But I'm curious what you have to say about him.
Okay, so Volke, obviously his combat sucks and you shouldn't have him fighting anyways, but the thing is, he's not gonna be fighting anyways because he has built-in Shade. Shade for starters. Shade is like pretty helpful for Volke because it actually lets him like do his job without like any any enemies like kind of trying to engage him, as he does like 2x2 during combat. But it's super. But I will say that like like treasure chest opening and stuff is like pretty useful for chapter 13 actually, because for those who may not know, that map it says 10 turn defend, but you can actually clear it like 3 turns earlier if you've routed all the enemies.
Oh, right.
And
The
gotten all the treasure chests.
This is the map where
before.
Astrid joins, right?
Yeah, correct. So like that is something worth noting.
Yeah.
Noting, like the game doesn't even tell you. There's no way of you knowing. It's just like the game just kind of happens. Like if you and like routing the enemies is like usually super, like you can definitely do it way before that. So like that is something worth noting. And it's really the treasure chest.
Okay, that's something real quick. I played a lot of chapter 13 for this run in the bottom right because I had to reset it like 2 times for like super dumb stuff. Not even the dumb thing you can think of, but even dumber stuff than that. So that's why that was a funny comment to me. But yes, if you're smart, you can do that. Go on, please.
Yeah, right. In the desert map, Volk's pretty much the thief of choice if you're trying to pick up the boots, because like, so you can actually make really good use of shade on that map, because like you don't want to kill the Laguz anyways, right? But at the same time, you don't want Volk engaging any enemies that might like screw things up. So like you could like say like have another flyer, like say Joe, like God draw enemies away to like make shade work even more than like better than it already is in a map like that. So like Volk can kind of go about his business, getting like really good, the desert item. Yeah, so that's something like super nice about Volk. But otherwise though, like for the most part, if you're using Volk, you're pretty much just using him if you see like treasure chests on the map. And like there are some that, like for example, let's say chapter 18, like you can just kind of have them like open like so the treasure chest that's like kind of along the way, because you want most of your units kind of like moving forward. Yeah, anyways.
18 is like basically a tube that you're moving through, right, to get to the end, like a route map where you just have to get to the end anyway. Yeah, it's the map where Tennis joins, I believe.
It is. And there are like also like maps where, for example, like chapter 21 has like a bajillion treasure chests, and like you can't exactly like have your army like two split out. Like you're gonna have some people split out, but Volk can also be useful for like just grabbing like some other like treasure chests that that's like kind of like along the way per se. Although like you said, like a lot of units can kind of just do his job with like chest keys and stuff, although like you don't have too many from what I remember off the top of my head, but you do have enough to get by.
Yeah,
for like a lot of the relevant stuff you want.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I know you get at least 2 sets of droppable chest keys with 2 UZs, and maybe 3. That's roughly the amount I'm thinking. And later on, you might get like a couple extra. Yeah,
because like each chest key you get is like 2 uses.
Yeah.
So like really, like let's say you're getting free, so that's like 6 treasure chests you could like open and stuff. Although it is worth noting that like Volk can pretty much like open doors or chests. Sure, it comes at a cost, but like money's not really a problem.
Yeah, no, it's so 50 gold per lock. It's like whatever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, not really a problem unless you're like super careless with your funds.
Yeah, no, that's like the problem where you run out and again you try to open the chest and it's like actually you should deploy stealth, buddy.
Yeah, but it's just like, dude, you have to actually try to get to that point, at least on hard, anyways. That's what I find.
So do you think it should move at all? I was thinking like maybe over Boyd from what I'm hearing, maybe, and that's about it. That's all I can think of.
For as good as Shade and like getting the desert items are, I don't think it's warranted moving up, because like he doesn't really do much. There's no other reason to deploy him.
I just think boots are just really good. That's all. That's the only reason.
I mean, he can. Yeah, boots is good. That's true. But it's a little hard to really weigh that over someone like Boyd, who you can just deploy for like filler combat, even if he can be bad at it sometimes.
Yeah, no, they're definitely apples and oranges. So So you think he should drop then? I guess the other way to ask it.
I don't think he should drop down a whole tier, but I think I could see him being like a little bit, like, say, worse than someone like Har or Khalil.
Yeah,
I can see that.
That's what I was thinking. I think maybe Khalil and Har might have to move up a little bit from where they currently are anyway, but we can like temporarily at least move folk below them, I guess.
Yeah,
And if these two drop below, or if these two go higher, then so be it. We can evaluate that later. Next question, I guess, is: do you think he's similar enough to Sothe that we should discuss him, or do you think we should leave him for later?
Okay, I think he is similar. I think Sothe, like, considering they kind of do the same job for most part.
It's like minus the boost part, because Sothe obviously is not doing that probably. But
yeah,
the treasure thing's the same.
Yeah, treasure, like the lockpicking without like the gold cost. That's pretty much Sothe in a nutshell. But like, and Sothe can take like one hit in some instances.
Yeah.
But like Sothe is like hilariously frail that you're not really gonna try and use him for combat. But also if you're gonna pick, like, usually you only really need one thief. Although in a map like chapter 13, or like chapter 15, you're gonna want two thieves. So like that's where like Sothe would see some use. But honestly, as far as Sothe goes, he doesn't have shade, unlike Volke, so kind of makes it harder for him to sometimes do his job effectively in some instances. But I'd be okay with moving him above the Laguz Kings, or like the Laguz endgame trio.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, those are like, I think every time we evaluate a unit against those, they're going to move down a little bit, and then at the end of the game, they're going to be like an F tier or something. But it sounds like you don't think he's better than these early game bros.
No, I don't think so. I honestly don't think so.
That's probably fair. Sothe, I think, is like, it's like Volke minus the things that Volke can do. There's not a whole lot left there, basically. I think if you plan out your Chesky uses, I feel like maybe you could make an argument that you don't need him at all. You never deploy him at all. It's never worth.
Yeah,
possibly.
Potentially.
But like if you're playing like the Astrid map, for example,
you're trying to go fast. Yeah,
don't really need two thieves, but it's convenient, so you kind of put him in there anyway. Like, I guess might as well, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it seems like a good spot for him.
Yeah,
right, that's nice. The rest of the prison squad, I guess. So Nephenee, Brom, and we already did Kieran last episode.
Yeah, we
were
did
talking
Kieran.
about Oscar. So it's just Nephenee and Brom. So two unleveled people that use lances and are like pretty funny meme units. I guess talk about, I don't know if I can't really do them as a package deal because I think they are like fundamentally different in their combat. So I guess I'll just talk about Nephenee first.
Sure.
So Nephenee is like hilariously unleveled in this game, and then kind of like with Boyd and Ike, other members of the Weapon Triangle, not much of a return on investment. I do think Wrath is very funny and interesting because a low health unit that crits people is super interesting, and you do have advantage scroll at some points, but I think it's so risky in this game to rely on that, especially if you're not able to hit 100% crit, that it's pretty hard to argue like a good return on it. And her stats are just so bad at base level. Her stats are horrible. She has like E rank lances, which I mean, I don't mind it that much thinking about it, because you could just forge an Iron Lance, and that's really all she needs until she becomes able to like kill things on her own. Because we're initially deploying her. Do you really want to use a Steel Lance or like a Javelin? Not really. Rather just use a forged iron and just go from there. And that's like fine, but there's not much of a return on investment here. So I do think she's better than Mia. Like, I think she can stay in D tier probably, because I think there's like a little bit more potential there, but not a whole lot. That's how I feel about Nephenee. She's funny, but the only reason to use her in this game is because you want to get transfers Nephenee for FE10, I think.
It is. It is, because like she's like so good in like 2-1 if you have transfers.
Yeah.
That like it makes that map significantly easier, or like not less of a pain. Yeah, +4 speed, and you also gain like essentially +4 strength, because like she can actually double, but we're not talking about Radiant Dawn here.
No. Apparently not.
Right. So Nephenee. Thing with Nephenee is you could do like Vantage Wrath. I do remember there was like a task run or a speed run that actually uses her for like Clash in particular, because like you'd like basically the idea is like, you have her in Wrath range, and then like she has Vantage, and then like she just crits everyone and saves you a bunch of time, like literal time, right? And that's the idea. And like she can like put the Night Ward to use to like try and increase like her bulk and stuff a little bit. Her base level honestly isn't too bad, all things considered. It's like level 7, so it's like not completely unsalvageable. Like, yeah, her bases still kind of suck, and you can backspur and in theory get something out of her, but like I don't really think it's worth the trouble. So like, and also like, yeah, our weapon rank might be a problem, but like if you just like decide to go the bonus XP route and just back spur up the promotion, then like you can just get her to C rank lances.
Oh, does that give her C rank lances she promotes?
Yeah, she does. If she doesn't have C rank lances by then, so like that is one neat thing about Tellius promotions, is that like it's almost like Gaiden promotions in that regard, but for weapon rank specifically, where like, oh, if you're not at this point, it will just automatically move you to up to a certain rank at base.
Today so, I learned.
Yeah, so like that's like super nice thing about Nephenee if you are trying to use her, and like you can make it work, like I said. So like that is like the nice thing about her.
Yeah, the question is, is that enough to make her move though? I guess Laguz Kings, I guess, again, but I don't know about like even Devdon and Largo, who are.
I mean, I do think like Devdon's like pretty underwhelming on his own, but like I guess we can talk about Devdon when we get to him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fine with roughly the relative range that she is around right now. Although you could argue, I mean, if you want to be bold, you could argue top of D, but where she is, I'm okay with.
Okay, that's fair. I guess I'm know that in the future these three will move down a fair bit. I guess I just put them at the bottom of D for now, just so that they're like out of the way from these.
Yeah.
This is more accurate, probably.
Yeah.
We'll probably discuss these at some point. Why they're so bad. But now I think it looks better, actually. I think this way, now that I look at it, I think this is a fine position for her. So I'm gonna move on to Brom then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so same join time, a lot of bulk. I don't think he's very useful for bulk. I think for similar issues that we outlined with Gatri is like you have so many other units that have bulk but also better mobility and offense that you never really need a choke point holder like Brom to step in and, you know, take everything out. And you have Gatri if you ever do need it, so even then it's like a secondary kind of unit, and when you ever need two of these, there's no map that really warrants that. He can like shove bot, I guess, because he is relatively high weight, but I don't think he's heavy enough to do like the really heavy lifting shoving like the Laguz do, so even that is not that great.
He can't quite shove Marcia, I think.
Shucks. Unfortunate. Yeah. So it just comes down to meme potential, and that's kind of about it for me. I don't think there's much he can do in an efficient context. If at all, like shoving a couple units, that's it.
Yeah, Brom is pretty much relegated to just shoving someone like racing, because like I said before, like even if you say do a double statue frag on Brom, he can't really shove Marcia, who is like really light as far as like mounted units goes. So like if you can't even clear that, okay, I guess he can in theory shove like unpromoted Marcia, but by the time you get the second statue frag, you want her promoted anyway, so it's kind of like never mind. Fine. So it's like the other thing with Brom is like he's pretty much Gatri with none of the early game utility that like Gatri could offer, and I honestly don't even think he does that much, or really anything for that matter, besides like shoving racing. That like I think you could just move him down there with like Mia and Rolf.
Oh wow.
Rolf, because that's how bad I think he is. And I think like besides the fact that he's, you know, Brom, I think like the community tends to give him a little bit too much slack, I find. Especially
about it. And I hate it. Because like the way I think of Brom, like the one salvaging thing apart from like everything we've mentioned up to this point, the one salvaging thought I always have for Brom is like, sure, his attack speed is bad at base, but you can patch it up with a Night Ward, and then he's somewhat like combat viable, right? But I don't know if he even reaches doubling thresholds even with the Night Ward. That probably takes a lot of time at the very least.
Because he's pretty much like worse than Gatri at base from what I remember.
Oh yeah, but that was already established. I think at the very least I would want to move him down this far.
Oh,
but I know you want him here in the
ET. I mean, I just can't, like, because like, dude, it's like, what is he actually doing for you?
I
like,
know.
Besides meme purposes.
Goodbye, Brom.
That's just what I think. Yeah.
Sorry, Brom. I love you.
Yeah. Great family, man, but that doesn't really cut it here.
Bro, great family. What about Meg?
Great family, but well, mostly great family, man.
True. Okay, that's the prison squad. Like you said, we already did Kieran last time. We were talking about Oscars, so I think it's Zihark next.
Yeah, Zihark.
Yeah, I think he's like surprisingly competent-ish at base because he has like high speed, killing edge at depth for like a fairly high chance to just kill an enemy he would not two-shot otherwise. And then that's kind of it generally for me because there's not much of a reason for like you never really need a unit that doubles. Real quick, do you remember if he doubles Ravens at base?
Oh, not. Let me.
I can't recall.
Because I remember Espinoza in his 0% run with actually used Master Zihark, which I think lets him double some Ravens that roll down on speed.
Okay, that's not.
So like he can do stuff if you really want him to. Like you have him use like the Laguz Slayer, and then like it'll go like boom. He can like do something.
Yeah,
but like it's not saying a whole lot.
There's some vague utility there, right? Like some vague stuff.
But okay, yeah. So he definitely can with if you like just instantly master seal him, he can like definitely do it against like some of the lower level Ravens like at base.
Yeah, or just get one level up, right? Because we're not talking 0% growth here.
Yeah, but I think he needs at least 17 speed to like attack speed to actually double like the slowest Ravens. So it's like +2 that he needs at minimum.
Okay.
But like realistically though, it's like if you're not master sealing risks or like miss, then I guess it's okay if you really want to try and use him.
Yeah.
Because like there's not many units who would appreciate instant master seal usage.
Yeah, it's either that or you save it for like someone's 20th level, right? Because you don't want to spend the 100 Bex to get from 20 to 21. I guess that's the other use for it.
Or even or if you just swap early promote somebody and say they have their stats capped out early, that's like the other thing I could think of.
Because that's better than Bexping them. Yeah, I guess that's okay. And that's like there's not much else to like for Zihark long term. Like foot units just don't have much of a great way of getting into combat, and even if they do, it has to be worth. And like for someone like Boyd, I think you can argue that like we discussed last time, but Boyd has a lot of actual things he can do in combat if you actually get him there. Same for like the Sages, even though they have low move, they have like either really high attack power or some other niche that makes it worth. But for Zihark, if you lift him into combat late game, you get a unit that doesn't counter at range and probably kills, but not even always. So not much of a point there, not much of a return on investment.
Yeah. I'd probably just move him down to D tier because like he has some actual use, but I don't think it's like that good.
Yeah, I feel like he's worse than Shinon and Gatri, right? And then Sothe, I kind of like his utility more. So this is kind of where it gets stuck, like on Devdon and Largo personally.
Yeah, like I definitely think he has more value than Devdon, but that's more of a Devdon thing.
Yeah. What about Largo then, or Nephenee? I think he's better than Nephenee.
I think he's around that same level as Largo because like Largo, you could argue Largo is like slightly better. Because like Largo, like at base, like so he already has the bonus crit built in. You can make him use a Brave Axe. You can make him use like these like high end like axes for like free. So like that is something. But like the problem with Largo is that it doesn't exactly exist, but there are actual maps for him to do stuff.
Yeah. So maybe we should put him like in this order for now, and we can discuss them
around here. Yeah. For now, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We have room for like 1 or 2 more units, I think.
We have Jill. That's gonna take up a lot of time.
Oh yeah, I guess we could just round it out with Jill then. That works. It's like Marcia still in everyone's mind, so I don't want to save Jill for next video. Okay, we're running out without Jill, and then we'll go from there. So I think with Jill, if you're not dedicated to using Marcia, you're probably dedicated to using Jill instead, because you really do want a really good combat flyer before 10th joins, and they're so valuable. And Jill instead of Marcia, Marcia is more like she needs some help with like attack and maybe some durability boost, but like I said, it's not super necessary. Whereas for Jill, it's more about needing some help with speed, and then like obviously the initial bonus experience boost and whatever stat push you've been hoarding for. But most of all, she wants speed and maybe some res and some chapters. But that depends on the context. There's some maps where you're just not facing mages. Sometimes you might like want to pure water. But if you got that, and if you were able to like catch her up, then she's still like super strong. She gets access after promotion, and because even though you get E rank access of promotion in these games,
I think it's like D.
It's a D. Okay, same thing. Doesn't matter. Same thing.
Yeah.
Either way, Force Steel Axe is pretty good. Force Steel Axe is pretty good. Can probably reach higher ranks too.
Yeah.
And then higher attack power over Marcia. Probably reaches her strength cap and then beats Marcia's strength anyway, so either easier to reach those thresholds. So as long as she doubles, she's fine. I heard one thing from Peeves that I will throw into the discussion here. and that's that Jill. He thought that she was a bit borderline on doubling late game enemies. Like he said, on average, Jill's maybe not doubling like higher speed paladin, so that can be an issue, I guess. But that's like a small flaw for like what I think is still an S tier unit. I think she's roughly fine where she is, just because everything we said about Marcia, almost everything, minus the maps where she's not around, still applies for Jill. But with those issues swapped around a bit. That's how I feel about Jill.
Yeah.
So really good.
Right. Okay, I'm just gonna correct myself, but it was E axes on promotion, but she can still
told
use
you,
steals.
I am the FE9. Just kidding.
Okay. Right. But thing with Jill is like so like her speed is like a pretty big issue that you definitely want to consider using the speed wings on her like early on. I will note that like her base strength is like only like slightly better than Marcia's. It's only like +2 or something like that. But like thing with Jill, obviously there's like her heavy, like she's like so fucking heavy that
wow,
like,
why are you weight shaming her? Jeez.
Wow,
like
no,
that.
but okay, no, but like fat shame, but like it is important for this discussion.
Okay.
Like trust me,
valid,
because like only
Sustained.
Mordecai untransform can actually shove her, which can be a big problem if you're for arrive maps or like maps where you're just counting tiles. So like she's not exactly the best user of boots, and there's also the fact that like you said, a lot of Jill's pros over Marcia only really start being relevant around like the time like promotes boats onward. And the other thing with Jill is like in efficient setting, it's like she kind of gets screwed out like not getting Bex for like really weird. Okay, in an LTC context, I know it's not like the main context, but like it is worth mentioning that she kind of gets screwed over in an LTC context, because like the reasons you need to have Marcia Bexed up and stuff that she may not necessarily be able to get, she can't quite use them right away is for like the weirdest reasons ever. Like in fucking chapter 14, you need Marcia promoted so that she can actually get Makalov to move, which is like super stupid for fucking gotcha game addict. But that's besides the. But the other thing is like if you say like Bex Jill up into early promotion, the thing is Mordecai can't exactly shove her anymore, and you have to give Mordecai a statue frag. But in turn, this means that due to the way the rescue formula works, this means that promoted male paladins can no longer rescue him.
Domino effects, I love him.
Yeah, so it's like insanely stupid. But with that being said, her weight can also help her in some maps. For example, if you're like trying to get Stefan like in a fast context, like what she can do that Marcia can't is that she can actually rescue Laguz units. Because like you need Lethe or Mordecai to go on this one like fucking particular tile that you have no way of knowing for like whatever reason. For like the most obscure recruitment in the game. So like her being able to actually carry them across the desert is like super nice, and you don't and like you can just keep the Laguz guard on her that she comes equipped with because like you don't want to kill any of the Laguz on that map anyways. So like that's like super nice about Jill. But for her late game combat, like this is where like she basically is supposed to be better than Marcia, like just strictly in terms of combat. She's like pretty much your best like Shiharam like boss killer, ironically. Like no joke, like if you're just like trying to fly skip that map and stuff, because like she only needs like 24 strength, which is like 1 strength above Marcia's cap. Although you can technically have her at 23 strength if you're having her use like a killer axe to like, because regardless of who you have face Shiharam amongst the flyers, like a max steel axe forge actually isn't enough to 1-round KO Shiharam. That is something worth noting. So like you have to like use a crit regardless, but like if you're like okay with like taking like an extra turn to like 1-round KO, like, or like not 1-round KO, but like to kill Shiharam, but like that's like kind of negligible.
Does the quick clear need you to 1-round Shiharam? Because I was thinking you could like enemy phase him, but
no, because you have to arrive. Because you have to like actually go into a seize point. That's why.
Oh, you don't have savior yet, and you need okay, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. and like luckily the map's like kind of small enough where boots doesn't really matter. But like a lot of Jill's great utility, it mostly comes in her ability to fulfill like secondary objectives. Like it, because comparing Marcia to Jill, I think it's almost like a misconception in itself in terms of like the actual roles they offer.
Well, this is in the context of like where you already assume that you're going for a lowest turn count, so you probably want Marcia to be the main carry anyway, right? And then Jill becomes a secondary, right? That's kind of what you're talking about now. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I was going to ask, like, is there room for both of them in a single playthrough to be like both super good? But I guess not really.
Because like I said, I just think like the roles that they do is kind of like apples and oranges in a way. Like, yeah, sure, they're both flyers, but really like in terms of what they do, it's like a little bit different. So like that's why I usually don't like to think Jill as a carry. I usually like to think of her as somebody who can like kind of help you if you're kind of like supplement Marcia, but she's still very good on her own.
Okay, I will ask this though. Like, let's say that we're not trying to look at the game from a perspective. Okay, Marcia is going to be the carry, right? Jill's probably the next best thing overall. Probably, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Although, like I said, like Jill does come with some notable downsides, like the fact that you can't exactly shove chain Jill around, so you are going to have like a bit of a loss in terms of like objectives that require you to like count tiles and arrive at a particular point. Although usually it's only a 1 or 2 turn loss, so it's like not too bad. But I think it's like a notable, because like when you're like talking about like the best units in a game, it's like those small differences kind of add up.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so ultimately I think, but I do think like Jill's like mid game is like can be underwhelming at times, but still like have legitimate use.
Okay, that's fair. It makes it sound like she's a bit more like Tanith than like Marcia almost sometimes.
In a way.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
But do you think she should move down then because of that?
No, I
just think she's like worse Marcia, basically.
I think she's perfectly. I think Jill is perfectly fine where she is. Because like even with like all the shortcomings I mentioned, like she's still better than like 99% of the like most of the units here. Here I think is perfectly fine. Like sure you could make an argument for Raisin, but it really depends on how much you value like his refreshes. It really comes down to that, I find.
I think I'm gonna keep Raisin where he is too, or at least keep him below Jill. Spoilers, I guess. That's how I feel about it right now.
Yeah.
Although I do think Raisin is like really broken, especially in like slightly more casual settings. But we'll talk about that when we get to him. But,
yeah, sure.
With my last Iron Man, I was like, damn, this ability is really busted. 4-way refresh is too good in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess Jill was staying after all. I realized when you said it, like, hey, if you're playing efficiently, you're probably backsping Marcia like 99 times out of 10. Or 90 out of 100.
But Jill can definitely still get some backs. She can still get like the backs like after like around the time Ike promotes, because that's when a lot of your units can start promoting actually.
Yeah.
So that's something worth noting.
Definitely. I will say I don't know if the bottom right units bottom right run arrives at that point yet, but I skipped Jill in my run because I had Super Marcia, so I just killed the boss before she arrived. But I'm not counting that against her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point to cut it off for today, because we did Marcia at the start and we did Jill at the end. Like one more could possibly want. So I guess we're going into the rest of the squad next time. It looks like we did a lot of units already on the way, so it looks like we have a lot of units left, but actually we've done a lot of units that are listed here already.
a lot of important ones. Yeah.
So I guess next time we're kicking it off with who's next?
I believe Astrid.
Yeah. And Gatri again, Kappa. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining.
All right. Awesome. It was a pleasure to be on here.